The first question we asked was, and we'll just go over the question again. Start from the beginning of Reis Gimel, even though we saw the first few lines. Sorry, Lahavit. The Kaven shall yedei gilu yechido, since through the revelation of yechido, aveda uberabim hayu imadi, and that's the aveda of the rabim hayu imadi, and that's the ikar of pada b'shalom. That's what the Rabbi said to us. Ein makam lemenagdim. There's no place for menagdim. That was how we explained the difference between the three different levels of bringing about a padiyah of the nefesh habahamis. There's the level of hislabshus, which is shaykh the nefesh ruach and neshama. That's that the person is misbeinen and convinces the nefesh habahamis al pi seichel that it's reasonable to serve the Eibishter. That's a milchama, because the nefesh habahamis can always answer back b'seichel some unreasonable claim. And the seichel can also be colored by the emotions. The seichel of the nefesh habahamis. So even though his claim might not be as reasonable as the claim for elokus, but it's colored by the emotion of the desire to stay connected to Gashmias, so the nefesh habahamis will try his best to counter the claim. Then there's the padiyah of the nefesh elokis mitzad from the nefesh habahamis mitzad chaya shebenefesh, that the rutzon of the nefesh elokis overcomes the rutzon of the nefesh habahamis. And then there's a level, but that's amazing, that's incredible, but it's not mevatel the nefesh habahamis in any way, shape, or form. It's just temporarily stunned, so to speak. Right? That what's that similar to in life? Inspiration, moments of inspiration. So a person is inspired, and so he's not necessarily so connected to negative things. He's very inspired to be connected to positive things, and that lasts a while, and when that disappears, so he reverts back to exactly the same state he was before. Interestingly enough, how might he take advantage of that state? By then bringing that into the state of hislavshus, bringing that into a state, making certain achlotas, changing his behavior based on the inspiration, so that now the nefesh ruach and neshama, on the level of hislavshus, on the level of conscious him, there's certain changes in his behavior. So that's how it might last, right? But it's still something that isn't complete. And then there's the third level, and that was the revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh. And by Yechidah Shebenefesh, so there's no place whatsoever for the nefesh habahamis. It's not there. So therefore, the Rabbi asks, since Pada B'Shalom Nafshi Mikravli is shaykh to Yechidah Shebenefesh, and we know that because it says ki, because Berabim Ayu Imadi, and we said Rabim is the makif kololi, the all-encompassing reality of etzem nefesh, of the essence of the soul, which contains within it everything. Therefore, it's rabim. All of the multitudinous realities are contained in that all-encompassing reality. Okay. So then, where's there any room for a misnagid? Where's there any room for opposition? And so, why do I have to have padiyah? Why do I have to be redeemed from that? That was the first question that Rabbi asked. Ein makam lemenagdim. Hari ein sarich az lepadiyah. Then there's no padiyah. I don't have to be redeemed. What am I redeemed from? Umizeh shebarabim hayu imadi hu tam al pada b'shalom nafshi. And the fact that barabim hayu imadi is the reason for pada b'shalom nafshi. What does that mean? The tam hu asiba shelifnei ha'inyan shemesuvav mimenu. The reason comes before that thing that comes as a result of the reason, right? So that means it's, so to speak, there. It's not that there was first a milchama and then a revelation of etzem and neshama, which means I emerged from the milchama in peace. No. It says pada b'shalom nafshi. Why? Ki b'rabim hayu imadi. Because there was a revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh. That means there shouldn't have been a need for a padiyah in the first place. If there's a revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh, so why pada? Mashma shegam la'achrei inyan barabim hayu imadi. Even after this reality of barabim hayu imadi, and what's that? Gilu Yechidah. That's the revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh. Tzricha still, the nefesh elokis requires padiyah, requires redemption. Elisha padiyah b'shalom. But the padiyah is calm. It's b'shalom. It's not a battle. It's mamela. Okay, that was the first question. We saw that question on Tuesday, but kedai to go over it again. Now, the next question. Ain't a moving. And further, it's not understood. The fact that barabim hayu imadi, which means a gilu of yechidah shebenefesh, a revelation of the essence of the soul, where the Jew comes to a conscious experience of the fact that all there is elokus, azoy v'nit andresh kacha v'iyefshar acheret. This is the way it is, and it's impossible that it should be any other way. That's yechidah shebenefesh. Absolute, complete, and total clarity. No opposition. The fact that that's the tam, that's the reason, al pada b'shalom nafshi mikravli, from the battle. Well, it's mashma, there's a battle. Mashma seems to be indicated the neisef lezeh, that in addition to the fact shegam la'achreya inyan, after the reality of Rabbi Mayu Imadi, the revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh, even after that, Tzricha Nefesh Elokis, still the Nefesh Elokis requires Lifdia, redemption, stop. He Tzricha Gam Lepedia Milcham L'Shekenegda, and she even requires redemption from the wars that are happening around her. Why? Because it says Mikravli. So this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The pasuk is a stira mineubei. The pasuk is internally inconsistent. On one hand, the pasuk says pada b'shalom nafshi mikravli. Mikravli. Okay, we can start there. Pada b'shalom mikravli. What does that mean? I'm being redeemed from a battle. On the other hand, it says, why am I being redeemed from the battle? Ki barabim hayu imadi, because there's a gilu of yechida. But if there's a gilu of yechida, two things. There's certainly no battle. And second of all, there's no need for padiyah. What am I being redeemed from? There's a revelation of godly reality, perfect godly reality, and there's no need to redeem the nefesh elokis from any dangerous situation. Even if that redemption is b'shalom, why do I need redemption b'chlal? Those are the two questions the Rabbi asks. And those are asked in all of the Pada B'Shalom Maimar. The Rebbe's answer here is completely and totally unique. It's an unbelievable answer. Ulechor, at first glance, Harigam kishenefesh b'hamis. Even when the nefesh b'hamis who kayoshen, it's sleeping, it's dormant. Why is it dormant? Because there's a revelation, a very powerful force of the nefesh elokis. So nefesh b'hamis is temporarily dormant. Times of inspiration, nefesh b'hamis is relatively dormant. The person is very excited, so he doesn't feel the nefesh b'hamis. He's feeling his nefesh elokis. He's feeling his connection to the Eibush. He's feeling his desire for this connection. He's besimcha. He's overjoyed in the expression of this connection to Elokus. Nefesh b'hamis is dormant. Sha'achar kach, of course, the fact that it's yoshan, sleeping, sha'achar kach yochel liyos chayzer v'nir, it can, of course, further later on be awakened. Chayzer v'nir is a din in halacha, very interesting din in halacha. Right? Well, it's a question whether or not there is such a din in halacha, right? But that's the very interesting sugya in Basa B'cholav. So we know there's something called bittul b'shishi. What does that mean? That means if a drop of milk falls in a pot of meat. So if there's not shishim of the milk, if the milk isn't a 60th of the meat, so the milk is bottled. And the meat's, the pot of meat is 100% kosher. Right? Okay. So it's bottled. What if another drop falls in, and together they have shishim? So you could say the first drop is chayzer v'nir, that the first drop is now revitalized and joins with the second drop to now be 1/45 of what's in the pot, and therefore it drapes the pot. Or you could say, no, first drop was batal and mevutal, doesn't exist, and it's gone. And now there's another drop. Right? Okay. It's a diyun in Hilchas Basa B'cholav, and B'chlau in Hilchas Tarobos, which is just a fascinating diyun. Do we say chayzer v'nir or not? So that's the idea of chayzer v'niyah. It's a din in halacha. It's a discussion in halacha. Okay. There could be a reawakening of the nefesh habahamis, and certainly we experience that. There are times when the nefesh habahamis is rather dormant. There are times when the nefesh habahamis is raging with an all-encompassing fire of passion for some shtus. Ein aloichem. So even though when he's sleeping, ein aloichem, he's not fighting. B'shas ma'aseh keneged nefesh elokis. At that time, he's not actually doing battle with the nefesh elokis. Why? Because it's dormant. So the nefesh elokis has her way at that time. Mikol shekain, all the more so. Kishem misbatlin, when you do away with the ritzonus of the nefesh habahamis, is the level of chaya shebenefesh. When the ratzon of the nefesh habahamis becomes batel to the ratzon of the nefesh elokis, al yedei haratzon the nefesh elokis the bechinis chaya. So when that happens, when there's a time of tremendous inspiration, so the Rebbe is talking about islavshus. The nefesh elokis convinces the nefesh habahamis that it's not reasonable at this particular time to show any opposition to this, and elokus is what's right, and elokus is what's good, and the nefesh habahamis listens. He's okay, say no. Doesn't put up any opposition. He allows the nefesh elokis to express itself. Then there's the time when the nefesh habahamis is completely not completely, but the ratzon of the nefesh habahamis is completely bottled to the ratzon of the nefesh elokis, because the ratzon of the nefesh elokis for elokus is so powerful. So it's not a matter of, so to speak, convincing the nefesh habahamis based on some sort of shakla v'taya, give and take, that, it's reasonable right now for you to sit quietly because there's good things happening here. Okay, fine, you'll sit quietly. No, there's an even higher level where the ratzon of the nefesh elokis is revealed. This is the inspiration we were talking about before, and so the person doesn't even experience a ratzon of the nefesh habahamis at that moment. It's a bottle. It can also return. Right. V'heach shayach. How is it shayach? Shegam la'achre gilu yechida. If there's a revelation in Naran, there's a revelation of Chayesh Benefesh, and we know what those are, so then I understand how there could be a temporary state where the Nefesh Bamis is quiet, and then she wakes up. Happens to be feminine, Nefesh Bamit. Right? So it's not that we're picking on women, it just happens to be feminine. Nefesh is feminine. Right? Okay. But if it's Gilu Yechida, but Rabbi Mayu Imadi, how can there possibly be an Indian of battle? Sha'az ein makam klal lo ritzanis the nefesh habahamis. There's no place whatsoever for the will of the nefesh habahamis. Sikha nefesh elokis lebediyim milchamas can connect them, and yet still we say that the nefesh elokis has to be redeemed from these battles. So that's the Rebbe's question. When we talk about the revelation of any other level of the nefesh elokis in the nefesh habahamis, so I understand that there could come a time afterwards, or there could be a reality even at that time where there's a certain need for a milchama. Even if the milchama is relatively calm, meaning the revelation of the ratzon, the inspiration of the nefesh elokis is such that the nefesh habahamis is temporarily bottled. But even at that moment, the nefesh elokis is going to be aware of the fact that there is a nefesh habahamis, but Baruch Hashem, right now he's not making noise. Very happy about that. Times of inspiration, the person is aware of the fact that they're feeling inspired. Yechidah Shebenefesh is the revelation of a level of reality in you and me where there is nothing but Elokus. And that's part of it. That's real. That's real me. That's real you. That's who we really are. Okay, when that's revealed, so then what's the krav? What's the battle? There's no battle. There's nothing else. And it's absolutely clear. Azoiv v'nitandrish. There is no other way. And in Chassidus, when they talk about a Mesiris Nefesh Dike Yid, so that Yid lives that way all the time. He's not he's a big tzaddik, right? He could be a Beinun, right? Rav Mendel is always referred to as a Mesiris Nefesh Dike Yid. It's just the way he lived, right? It wasn't that story that Dr. November mentioned the other day. I mean, he didn't tell the whole story, but he just mentioned the idea of Chassid Amud. What's the story? And this is really how Mendel lived. Right? That two people named Menachem Mendel. But one of them was Menachem Mendel ben Menachem Mendel. Mendel Futterfass, his name was Menachem Mendel ben Menachem Mendel because his father passed away before he was born. So He was called up to the Torah, Menachem Mendel ben Menachem Mendel. Rav Mendel was this was Chaf Menachem Av, which is the Rebbe's father's yortzeit, and it also happens to be that here in Eretz Yisrael there's what's called Kinus Anash every year. They make a Kinus on the Rebbe's father's yortzeit, and all of the the Anash, all of the Chassidim in Eretz Yisrael get together. Used to be in Kfar Chabad, there's different places where I'd get together, man, for bringing. People talk, there's music, one of those. It's like a Farbrengen, but it's not exactly a Farbrengen because it's it's too formal. So Rav Mendel got there late. So Rav Mendel, since he got there late, he would otherwise be sitting on the front table on the stage, the table with the stuff on the bottom of it and all that. He'd be sitting up there because he's Rav Mendel, but he was in the back row. So he walked in late and he found a seat in the back row and he sat down. There was someone else in the back row, Rav Mendel Glukovsky. Rav Mendel Glukovsky is the second in command of the Beis Din here in Eretz Yisrael. He's the Rav of the Lubavitch community in Rehovot. He's a wonderful person, and he also got there late. He would also be sitting up in the, but he was sitting in the back row. Now, when is this? This is Chaf of Tafshin Nun Dalet. This is a month and a half after Gimel Tammuz. So the Chassidim are pretty shell-shocked. And they're doing whatever they're doing, and people are talking about whatever they're talking about. And Mendel, we'll say Mendel and Rabbi Glukovsky, right? Because we have two Mendels here. Mendel kept saying to Rabbi Glukovsky, "No, get up and say what has to be said." So he asked him what has to be said. What has to be said is the Iker is the Chassidim should be in a state of Achdus. The most important thing is the Chassidim have to stay united. Halavai. So that's what Mendel wanted Rav Glukovsky to say. Now, Rav Glukovsky has no problem standing in front of a couple of thousand people with a microphone and speaking. He's not nervous. He's not afraid of crowds. But he's not exactly the type of personality that's going to stand up in the back row on his chair and start screaming, what he has to say when there's people who are, part of the program in the front with the microphone. It's just not, there are people who would do that. Zusha Partizan would definitely do that. Zusha Partizan, so his son loves to tell the story, Levi. Levi is a very special Jew. So Levi tells a story. He was traveling back from the Rebbe with his father after Tishrei. And they went to check in. And Levi asked for a seat about 10 rows away from his father. So I said, "Why don't you want to sit with me?" He said, "I don't want to sit with you." I said, "Why not?" "You're going to embarrass me." I said, "Well, how am I going to embarrass you?" So you're going to get up in the middle of the flight and you're going to stand in the front and you're going to make a speech about what you heard from the Rebbe in Tishrei, and it's embarrassing. I find it embarrassing. He says, "Really? You find it embarrassing when I do that?" So I won't do it. So you won't do it? So sit with me. I want to sit with you. It's a long flight. It's 12 hours. We can sit and schmooze. Okay. But you won't get up and make a speech in the front of the cabin? I said, "No. It's embarrassing. I won't do that." Fine. So they sit together. So sure enough, an hour into the flight, once the seatbelt sign is off and everything, so Zusha stands up in the front and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I just have an announcement. I was just spent the month of Tishrei by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I'd just like to tell you some of the things that we heard from the Rebbe." And he says over some things. So Levi is like, can't believe it. He can't believe it. So he gets up and he goes to the the section behind that section on the plane. So he's sitting back there. He can hear his father up there. He's sort of muffled voice. He can't really hear what he's saying, but he hears there's a muffled voice. There's still someone talking up there, and he's sitting in the back. And he's fine. So he's sitting there, found a seat. Right? I guess it wasn't so full. So he's sitting there, and fine. So his father finished. So of course his father came to that section to talk to those people. So Levi then went back to his original seat. Right? Because now he didn't want to be sitting there, so he went back to his original seat. And as he's sitting in his original seat, someone comes up to him and says, "Is that your father?" What a great guy. That was so amazing. That was so uplifting. I'm so happy that he did that. That's so incredible. Well, yeah, it's my father. Yeah. Right? But there are people, that was Zusha. Zusha was like that. He would get up on the plane and tell everybody on the plane what the Rebbe said over Tishrei, because that was Zusha. Right? Zalman Natik Olav Shalom. So Zalman was once flying back from the Rabbi on Lufthansa, and the flight from Germany to Eretz Yisrael, so they made an announcement in German and in English. German and English. They made an announcement. Is there anybody who speaks German and Hebrew so that you can translate what we're saying in German to the people who only speak Hebrew on the plane, because they have a tape, but the tape broke. They're recording, right? But the recording's not working. Is there someone who can do that? So he knew enough German from Yiddish that he understood basically what they wanted, and so he went up to them and he told them that yes, he can translate the German into Hebrew. And so they would make their announcement. This happened twice on the flight. They made their announcement in German, and then Zalman said over a Sikha the Rabbi in Hebrew to everybody there through the loudspeaker, and then landing, like half an hour out from landing, they make another major 2-3 minute announcement. Then Zalman got up and took the mic and said over another 2-3 minute Sikha of the Rebbe. So there are people who do those sort of things. That's their personality, or it's not their personality, but they overcome their personality and do it. Okay, Mendel Kachavsky is not that kind of guy. He's that doesn't mean that we all shouldn't be, and even if we're not, we should overcome. But he didn't feel that. So every time Rav Mendel asked him to get up, Rabbi Lukovsky would say, "No, not now. They're playing music. Not now. So and so is speaking." And he schnuggled out of it throughout the whole thing, and the thing was finally over. And he was helping Mendel go out. Mendel for the first was older. He passed away a year later. He was older and wasn't well. So he's holding Mendel's arm, and they're walking out. And Mendel looked at him and said, "Why didn't you say anything?" So he said, they're speaking Yiddish. He said, "I didn't have a mood." Mood is a mood. I didn't have a mood. I wasn't in the mood. Mendel stopped and looked at him and said, "Mood? A chassid? What's a mood? What's that got to do with anything? What's a mood? How I feel. That's subjective reality." What was subjective reality got to do with objective reality? There's an objective need for someone to say, "Well, I'm not in the mood." What does that got to do with anything? Mendel just couldn't understand what he was. It's the mood? A chassid? That was Mendel's line, which is rather challenging. Like, okay. So what does that mean? That's what we say. Mendel was a Mesiras Nefesh Dika Yid, meaning Mendel just was connected, and whatever had to happen happened, and there was no possibility of anything else. That's just how it worked. Right? That was Mendel. He used to tell a lot of jokes. He was a character. When he'd Verbreng, he would tell a lot of jokes. It wasn't like he was this serious guy. Often when he would start talking to people in 770, not anywhere, but 770 is where these things are most obvious because there's more people around. So he would start talking to some people, he'd sit down next to someone in 770, starting having a conversation. So it ended up being a Verbrengen because everybody would gather around. They wanted to hear what Rav Mendel had to say. Sometimes they'd even bring a microphone because there might be 100 people already standing around listening to Rav Mendel. So someone would arrange to get a microphone that you could hear him better. Not anytime, but when they would bring the microphone, often, just to make sure that no one thought that Rav Mendel was anything more than Rav Mendel was, the first words he said in the microphone that everybody would hear were some of your ears would burn from the words that came out of his mouth, right? And just so you wouldn't think he was too holy. And then he would continue for bringing. But he would say some things that I won't repeat, that you wouldn't repeat, right? That just to make sure that, don't get carried away. I remember once walking out of 770 with a student of mine. We took a left turn. We walked past Rabbi Klein's house, and Rav Mendel walked out of Rabbi Klein's house with Rabbi Klein. And we stopped. We looked at Rav Mendel, and I explained to him that's Rav Mendel. Think about who he is. So, we sort of. I think a lot of people had a certain bittul to Rav Mendel because he was, he was a pretty special chassid. Gone through what he went through, and he was pretty special. So. We're standing there, and I guess there was too much of a tenu of bittul, and Rav Mendel didn't like it, so he looked at us with this look of just complete and total disdain. Like, what are you looking at? What are you are you doing? What's wrong with you? You're crazy. Now, in all fairness, where did we just walked out? We just walked out of 770. Who's in there? All right, so Mendel just couldn't relate. Like, what are you looking at me like that? But he was the real thing. So they called Mendel Mesiris Nefesh Deke Yid. Who's that? That's a Yid who Yechidah Shebenefesh is shining through a lot. So there's not so much opposition. So where's the opposite? How does this work? That there's opposition if there's Kibbur Rabbi Mayu Imadi? And the Rabbi says an absolutely amazing thing. And this is a complete chiddush here. V'yesh leimer bir. One can explain the bir. It's not a complete chiddush because the Rebbe does mention that you could see this in Tanya, but you'd only see it after you read this. V'yesh leimer bir. The fact that it says because b'Rabbi Mayu Imadi, that means what? That the reason I'm being redeemed from this battle is because there's been a Gilui of Yechidah Shebenefesh. And our question was, if there's a Gilui of Yechidah Shebenefesh, why is there a battle? Because the Gilui comes before the redemption. So there's no battle. Oh, Rebbe says no. Demizeh mashma kanal is therefore from this it's understood as it said earlier, the shepada mikravli hu la'acharei, that my redemption is after B'Rabbi Mayu Imadi, after the revelation of Gilu Yechidah. So why is there a krav? Why is there a need for redemption? Who? B'chdei l'rames. It's coming to hint at something very interesting, the Rebbe says. And this is relevant to every single one of us. Shagam mishu b'dargad namucha. Even someone who's on a lower level. What does that mean? Shenefesh elokis, that is godly soul. Not only the level of Yechidah, which is very often in a state of concealment, but his neshama b'chlal. He's not constantly or even very often powerfully aware in a revealed way of his neshama. Even the level of neshama that's clothed in the body, even the level of neshama that we talked about earlier, nefesh ruach neshama. So if that level of neshama is revealed, so there's going to be a milchama with the nefesh elokis, and hopefully with the nefesh bahamis, and hopefully the nefesh elokis can overcome the nefesh bahamis by convincing the nefesh bahamis that bemet is kedai to connect to the Eibishter. Even that level's hidden. Va'ad, to such an extent that this person, shenefesh bahamis lachemes keneged nefesh elokis, that his nefesh bahamis really is fighting against his nefesh elokis, and he has taivas for elam hazeh, he has taivas for all sorts of things that have nothing to do with elokus. Can you imagine? Can you imagine there's such a person? Shoot. A person who actually has taivas and gashmi is a person who isn't completely and totally connected to godliness at every moment of his life. Can you imagine that there's such a person? Shoot. It's a good thing we learn Chassidus so we can learn about these sort of people. In other words, this isn't for Mendel. This isn't a person for whom there's some revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh in some almost revealed way very often. Mikol Makim. In 2 lines, the Rabbi says it all. Mikol Makim. How? So then, that person, the person who has a battle with his nefesh bahamis, his nefesh bahamis, his nefesh bahamis causes him to think about things that have nothing to do with elokus, and causes him to have taivas for things that have nothing to do with elokus, and causes him to have a koch and things that have nothing to do with elokus. He has a nefesh bahamis, and it's chai v'kayim, mamish. That guy. So how's he shaykh to Pada B'Sholem? Pada B'Sholem is Gilu Yechidah. No, Rebbe says that guy who has a battle, there's a krav. Pada B'Sholem nafshi mi krav. He has a krav. This guy has a krav. There's a battle. Mikomok. Even that guy, the Rebbe says, al yedeya machshava, by virtue of his thought, be'inyana yechida, in the matter of yechida. In other words, by virtue of that Jew understanding, first he has to think about it, he has to learn about it, and then he thinks about it. And what does he think about? That I have an etzem in the Neshama. I have an essence of the soul, and that essence of the soul is essentially connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and on that level of me, as Zoy v'nit andrish. I'm not experiencing that in my conscious reality right now. But am I aware of the fact that such a level exists? Yes. He's aware of the fact that such a level exists. Why? Because he's learned Chassidus. He knows there's such a level of neshama. He knows that that's what a yid really is. Al yedei machshava binyan yechida. And what does that lead to? V'achlota. And he makes achlota. Shan hagish shaloi, that his behavior tia will be behetem, consistent lebechinas yechida shebenafshe. This Jew is faced with a battle. He's faced with the temptation of the nefesh habahamis. And what does he remind himself of? I'm essentially connected to the Eibishter. Why am I having such a time? I'm going to act in accordance with the essence of my soul. I'm not acting in accordance with this type. And that's B'Rabbi Mayu Imadi. P'diyas nafshe elokis. The redemption of his nefesh, which has to be redeemed because there's a powerful force of the nefesh habahamis making noise in this person's conscious reality. P'diyas nafshe elokis milchomis, the nefesh habahamis. From these milchomis, pod the nafshi mikravli, he redeemed my soul from the battles who boifin the sholem. It's calm. And those three lines explain everything the Rebbe has to say about Avodas Hashem. By the Rebbe, what's Avodas Hashem? And it's so interesting because the Rebbe so rarely, I mean, here he is talking about the Nefesh Habahamis, but even here he's not talking about the Nefesh Habahamis as much as he's talking about the Nefesh Elokis. In order to understand what the Nefesh Elokis has to do, so you have to mention the fact that there is a Nefesh Habahamis. We said it, but the Iker is the Nefesh Elokis. The Rebbe rarely talks about the Nefesh Habahamis. The Rebbe talks about Nefesh Elokis all the time. Why? Because the Rebbe doesn't want our Aveda to be the fact that we have to scrunch up our face and look like we're in pain every time we're trying to confront God. Why is it so painful? What's painful about confronting God? You ever talk to a person that way? Hi, Doc! Doc! How are you doing? Who talks to someone that way? We don't talk to people that way. If they're there. Now, I know it might be hard to get the Eibishter there for me. I mean, he's there, but okay. So I get that I might have to, concentrate a lot on this. But why does it look painful? It doesn't have to be painful. It's not painful. It's beautiful. And how can it be something that's real? The Rebbe says such an amazing thing. And this is what the Rebbe wants from us. This is what Rebbe thinks is shaykh to us. And that's why the Rebbe wants us to be calm in our Avodas Hashem and do it b'simcha, and just it should just be who you are and you should just flow with it. Because it is who you are. That's who you really are. You have nefesh elokis, b'seder, okay. You have a nefesh elokis, that's nefesh ruach neshama. You have a chaya shebenefesh, okay. You have yechida shebenefesh. You have this level of you that is completely and totally connected to the Eibishter, and on that level of you there is no other reality. Okay, I'm having a hard time bringing that level of reality into absolute revelation in my conscious reality, because I'm down here and that's, so to speak, up there. It's not really up there, but I relate to it being up there. Okay. So what does the Rebbe say? Think about it. Just think about the fact that that's who you really are. And then make achlata, you know what? Pasnish, that if that's who I am, that I should do this. Why in the world would I want it? Would my etzem and the Neshama want to do this? No. So then why am I doing it? And b'shalom, a person will be extracted from that place. It might be a battle. Yeah, there's a battle because there's nefesh habahamis making noise. But since the nefesh elokis is, you can remind yourself of a place in you that's not shaykh to that battle. It's transcendent of that battle. So then you can deal with it b'shalom. That's what the Rebbe says. Which is absolutely unbelievable. And that's why the Rebbe wants our avodah to be natural and simchadik, right? Do you have to go beyond yourself? Well, yes, but no. Because going beyond ourselves simply means touching who I really am. It doesn't mean I'm going somewhere where I'm not. I'm going somewhere where I am. And that's real me. I have to go beyond conscious me. But real me? Who's real me? Real me is essentially connected to the Eibishter. Real me doesn't know what Nefesh Bahamis is and what Klip is and what all that. It just doesn't even know what it is. Sometimes with the girls in SEM. So yeah, they ask questions. It's good. It's good to ask questions. But sometimes but the questions aren't always coming from places of. It's good they're asking questions, but it's lav dafka coming from a place of absolute kedusha. I mean, it might very well be the Nefesh Bahamis wants to, justify something, so it's busy asking a question. Okay. I remember that. I'm thinking of this just because it came up yesterday in Shir. Yesterday. It's reasonable to say to them sometimes, okay, it's a good question. Now, close your eyes. Imagine yourself standing in front of the Rebbe, in Yechidus, in the Rebbe's room, and ask him that question. Well, they all say, I'll never ask the Rebbe that question, I'd be embarrassed. Oh. So then it's not real, is it? If you're not going to ask the Rebbe, so obviously, throw it away. Don't put it in a drawer. Just, obviously, you're telling me right now that you understand. But pnimius, that's not a question. So then why are you asking it? Because you wouldn't ask the Rebbe, you'd be embarrassed to ask the Rebbe that question. Why? Because when I'm standing in front of the Rebbe, I know, I'm like connected to who I really am. Okay, Beseder, so then why are you asking the question? I can't say they don't get annoyed, because it's a winning argument. No one likes to lose an argument. But it's very powerful, and each and every one of us can do that in our lives. Have an issue. Just close your eyes and imagine explaining this issue to the Rebbe, or trying to convince the Rebbe that your position on this issue is right. And you're so embarrassed by your position, you won't even start. Yeah, the Rebbe's going to go, oh yeah, for sure. It came up yesterday because they were talking about their Lexus. The Rebbe wants me to have a Lexus. The Rebbe doesn't want you to have a Lexus. The Rebbe would love you to have everything you want in Gashmis, but the Rebbe doesn't want your head to be there. It's not what they were talking in these, obviously, a conversation in Hebrew. They're talking about she'ifot, goals and things that you're driven for. The Rebbe doesn't want your she'ifot to be a Lexus. The Rebbe wants your she'ifot to be Mashiach. Okay, Beseder, does that mean the Rebbe doesn't think it's a nice, you want a Lexus? Beseder, you should have everything you want in Gashmis. Why not? But where's your head? So they're, no, you can have both. And they're 18 years old. I haven't figured it out yet. All right? No, you can have both. You can be at both places, which of course is nonsense. And the first thing, especially talking to women, the first thing you tell them is, okay, but your kids will know where you are, so you better figure this out before you have kids, because your kids are going to know exactly where you are. That your head is in the Lexus and not in the Shabbos that they're talking about, and not in the learning that you want them to do, and not right. They're going to figure that out right away. Right? They get that because they were kids fairly recently and figured it out with their parents. I don't know where you're teaching about, you don't know where their parents are holding. Some of them are mamish Chassidus, and some of them probably have, struggles with it all. Lots of people like that. So they get it. So I just asked, I said, go, you want to convince me? You're not going to convince me. But I say, well, close your eyes. Try to convince the Rebbe that the Lexus is what you should really have your head in. Right now, close your eyes and tell me how, so they never dream of that. Fine, good deal. It's not true. And very, very often we'll have a question. It's a real question. It's not a silly question. It's a real question because we're interested in living real lives. And that question, if I think about it for a little longer, and if I were to challenge myself to ask that question to someone who I have absolute, complete, and total respect for, so then I'm embarrassed by the question, so I'm not going to even ask the question. So then I realize what the answer is before I even asked it. There's no question. Okay. So that's what the Rabbi says here. What should the person do? Think about the fact that you have a yechida. And for the chassid, I mean, I don't think that's what the Rebbe is saying here, right? But I mean, to forbring about it. So the chassid, what does Chassidus explain? There's a yechida klolis and a yechida pratis. There's a general yechida shebenefesh, the whole Jewish people, and then each person has their own yechida. What's the yechida klolis? Is the yechida of Moshe Rabbeinu, of the generation. That's the yechida klolis. So that's why if you encounter that connect, if you arouse that connection, so then you're connecting to your own yechida, which means you're thinking about your own yechida, and then it's b'shalom. It's calm. The wind at my back, so to speak. So look at footnote 16. The Rabbi says something interesting here. V'abirur the nefesh habahamis, the rectification of the nefesh habahamis. Gam shebederech milchoma. Even in the way of milchoma, mikol sheken, all the more so shebederech shalom, when it happens calmly and peacefully. Hu nala yosem mizeh is greater if the person connects to Yechidah Shebenefesh, mizeh shurak kiyoshin, than when the Nefesh Bahamis is just sleeping. I'm sorry, I read 15, now 16. Al derech kiyum Torah and mitzvahs, similar to the performance of Torah and mitzvahs, al yedei, based on, the Rebbe is now quoting Tanya, 25th parak in Tanya, where the Rebbe talks about Mesiras Nefesh. She yizkor tamid inyan Mesiras Nefesh. In Tanya, the Rebbe says you should constantly remember the notion of Mesiras Nefesh. And there the Rebbe is talking about performance of mitzvahs. When a person does a mitzvah, he does it with Mesiras Nefesh. What does that mean? Mesiras HaRatzon. He gives up his Ratzon. He gives his Ratzon over to the Eibishter's Ratzon. He makes the Eibishter's Ratzon his. Tanya, Seif Perek Chafei. Shagilu ad Inyan Yechida. That this revelation of Inyan Yechida, the Mesiras Nefesh hu mitzad Yechida, Mesiras Nefesh comes from Yechida Shebenefesh. And this comes, mizachiras inyan Mesiras Nefesh, from the remembering, like we're saying here, remember, think about the Yechida. So remembering the inyan of Mesiras Nefesh. Hurak b'negei lamaisa. Over there, it's talking about doing mitzvahs. Here, we're talking about a general battle with the Nefesh Bahamis, rectifying the Nefesh Bahamis in general. Over there, it's talking about a specific action. I'm overcoming a Yetzer Hara not to do a mitzvah, overcoming a Yetzer Hara that might want me to do something against the will of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ulahar mima shekotzu b'Tanya sham, b'zeh yuchel lamed neged Yitzer l'natzchi. By remembering Mesiras Nefesh, so the Jew can overcome his Yetzer and emerge victorious. Hainu shegam agilui di Yechida. Also, this revelation of Yechida b'negei lamaisa, relative just to the deeds of the person, not relevant to a more general state of overcoming the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh Bahamis, elevating the Nefesh Bahamis, redeeming the Nefesh Hakis from the Nefesh Bahamis, but just making sure that this particular action happens, or it doesn't happen, depending on what the action is. Hu ba'ofen is in a way, she'yetzer hara leichem, the Yetzer Hara is fighting this person. Even though there's no shadow, right? Even though, like the Rabbi said earlier, Yechidah Shebenefesh is the place where there's no reality whatsoever of anything outside of Elokus. That's Yechidah Shebenefesh. Okay, and that what the Rabbi brought the Gemara Bevaya de Bevaya Leislu, talking about shadim. There's not even a shadow of a shadow. There's no reality whatsoever. By remembering Mesiras Nefesh, even though there's the Nefesh Bahamis is there, it's not that there's such a revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh that there's no Nefesh Bahamis. No, There's a nefesh b'amis. Nefesh b'amis is making the person have taivas for something, or a desire not to do a mitzvah, or a desire to do something that's the opposite of a mitzvah. But he remembers Mesiras Nefesh, he remembers the revelation, Yechidush B'Nefesh, he remembers the fact that he can give up his life for the Eibishter. So giving up the life for the Eibishter, if he'll do that, so then obviously he can deal with the discomfort of not doing this Aveira. Person has a taiva for an Aveira, Beseder, so they want it, fine. They're going to feel uncomfortable for how long if they don't do it? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay, it'll come back an hour, 2 hours, whatever. They'll feel uncomfortable. Beseder. What does Perek Chafei talk about? The person will be Meisya Nefesh for Elokus. So if he's going to give up his life, certainly he can deal with 5 minutes of discomfort. Okay. So that's similar, the Rebbe says. Now, Remember, this is Mesiras Nefesh. He'd be Meisya Nefesh. This taiva that the Jew has, Chas v'Shalom, he has a taiva to do something. If there were a Soviet with the gun to the Jew's head telling him to do this, he would never do it. It's not a Soviet. It's my own Yetzer Hara. So the Soviet, if I don't do it, could be the end of a person's life. With the Yetzer Hara telling me to do it, so it's going to be 5 minutes of discomfort. So how can it possibly be that I can't put up with 5 minutes of discomfort? Why is that? But I have to remember the Indian of Mesiras Nefesh. I'd be Meisya Nefesh for this. So I can put up with 5 minutes of discomfort not to do it. Or I can put up with the discomfort of doing it, whatever, getting out of bed. Okay, so the first couple of minutes after I get out of bed, I'm going to wish I were back in bed. But at a certain point, I'm just going to be moving around, right? I'll just be awake. Dreaming of the next time I can put my head on the pillow. And there's always the bus ride. I can just fall asleep on the bus and miss your stop. You ever miss your stop falling asleep?
On the train, yes, not on the bus.
Oh, yeah. I missed on the train once also. I fell asleep. I ended up in Yafo, whatever, the first Yafo one. After Davidka, so I all of a sudden I woke up and whoo, and I hear Yafo, whatever it's called. It's Yafo Merkaz, that one, and then there's Yafo.
There's
Hayuriya, right? Okay, so Yafo Merkaz. I heard Yafo Merkaz. So I didn't take the train back. I walked. Yes, it can happen. My mother-in-law once fell asleep on a New York City bus going out. They used to live in Riverdale, which is in the Bronx.
Yeah.
So, I don't know where she was coming from. She used to work. She worked in like downtown Riverdale, and they lived a little further north in Riverdale. She was the administrative assistant of a state assemblyman who ended up becoming Attorney General of New York. Interesting guy. So did that for years and years and years. So at one point she fell asleep on the bus and woke up in the bus garage in Yonkers.
Wow, garage.
Yeah, she woke up in the bus garage. She was so tired she fell asleep on the bus and didn't wake up until the bus started. She didn't wake up. The bus driver did a seer of the bus. When they're finished, they have to look around on the bus, make sure that no one left anything. So if no one left anything, there's this body sitting there. So he goes, ma'am, and woke her up. Oh my goodness, you can imagine, where is she? She's in Yonkers. What am I doing here? He drove her home. The bus driver said, come, I'll drive you home. She fell fast asleep. It's not that far, right, Yonkers? But, it's still, Baruch Hashem. Very nice of him. Baruch Hashem, there's lots of nice people in the world. So he drove her home. She was very appreciative. Then he went wherever he lived, Probably lived in Yonkers somewhere. Can fall asleep. So we can fall asleep in Ruchnias and we can fall asleep in Gashmias. Okay, so that's the end of the first part of the Maimer. That's the Pada B'Shalom part of the Maimer. Well, we said there are 3 parts to the Maimer. The second part that we're about to start, which is really more Hey Vav Zayin than Dalet. Dalet is sort of the introduction to it, is going to discuss, and we'll just stop now because it's Thursday and we'll have a little longer to prepare. What we're about to go now is the Rebbe is going to discuss 2 different levels of Sholem. Because it says Pada B'Sholem, base Sholem. The Rebbe is going to bring 3 psukim where it talks about Beis Shalom, V'shavti B'Shalom, V'rei B'nayich, Rav Shalom. So 2 different levels of Shalom. Right? And that's going to be Shalom milamayla lamata, Shalom from above below, and Shalom milamata lamayla, Shalom from below above. Shalom that we bring about by virtue of our Aveda, and Shalom that's a function of a revelation from above. 2 different levels of Shalom. Right? Okay, that's where we're going next. This is the end of the first part of the minor, Pada B'Shalom Maimer, Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, and that those last 3 lines are the atomic bomb in the mimer, where the Rebbe says something. This you won't find anywhere else in any other Pada B'Shalom mimer. You will not find this idea of what Pada B'Shalom Mikrav means. That even though the person has a milchama, and that means we're not talking about a revelation of Yechidah Shebenefesh where the person's conscious of that level. Therefore, there's no milchama. No, the person's living in a place of milchama, and the nefesh b'am is making noise in this person's life. How does he extract himself from this in a state of shalom, calmly, remembering who he really is? It's really Yechidah Shebenefesh that's connected to the Eibushter B'atzim. It's a piece of Elokus. He's a chelik elokam imal mamish, a little piece of God walking around in a goof. Then he deals with it. Chaim, chaim. That go on the stream if I say that? Probably not, right? I hope not.
Not 100% sure.
I like what